Hey everybody, it's Emily from ARG Schooling, and I'm going to do my April wrap-up today. Is it really already May? Like, where did April go? Seriously, I missed most of the month. I feel like I was sick for half the month, so time just got away from me. I did manage to read quite a few books. I read a total of 7 books, and I'm just going to get right in it and show you what I read. I finished the 3rd volume of the Cartoon History of the Universe. I have a full review of the series that I'll link for you guys if you want to know more about it. Basically, this volume covered from the rise of Arabia, so the beginnings of Islam, all the way through the early Renaissance. So it's really well done. I really enjoyed the series a lot. I'm looking forward to reading the next 2 or 3. I think there's 3 more in the series. And yeah, I highly recommend these. The next book I read was Mother of the Believers by Kamran Pasha. This is a novel of the birth of Islam. I really enjoyed this. Actually, it's a big book. I was intimidated, I'm not gonna lie. I saw the size of it and went, what was I thinking? But I really enjoyed the story. It's told from the perspective of Aisha, who was considered to be Muhammad's favorite wife, and it's her story told through her eyes about how Islam began. And so I liked that it gives it a little bit of a feminist spin. You get the female side of the story, sort of, but it's really well done. I think it's respectful to the religion itself. It's not anti anything, but it isn't pro either. It's sort of, I don't want to say it's neutral, but it is kind of a neutral source, which is odd to say, but because it is told from the perspective of somebody in the middle of it. But I think it's respectful, but not like you should be Muslim, if that makes sense. But I really enjoyed her perspective of the story, and I also found it really disturbing and interesting how she was only 9 years old when she married him, and he was like 40, and that made me feel all kind of squicky inside. Like I had a hard time wrapping my brain around that. And I know that that's a controversial view. Nobody really knows. They know she was young. Some say as young as 9. She might have been older, but if she was 9, that's disturbing, I have to say, on so many levels. But but I did enjoy the book, and I recommend, if you're interested in the topic, if you want to know more, I recommend you read this. I also read Neil Gaiman's Norse Mythology, and I loved it. Surprise, surprise. But I love reading about Vikings. I loved the show Vikings. I've always had like this weird fascination for that time period, for that place, and this was just fantabulous. If you watch Vikings, then you'll know what I'm talking about. But I heard this book narrated in my head by Lagertha, because I feel like this is like how she would have told stories to Bjorn when he was little, and like, I don't know, I loved that. It felt very much like a storyteller telling the story to you, like how a bard would have sounded. So I don't have it, but I want to find this on audiobook, because I have a feeling that this would make an amazing audiobook just based on how it's written to sound like an oral storyteller. But the stories are wonderful. It's just, Neil Gaiman is just brilliant, and yeah. It's awesome. I highly recommend this. I also read Enchantress from the Stars by Sylvia Engdahl. I've had this in my TBR for literally years, and I finally picked it up, and I really enjoyed it. I thought this was a really strange but interesting tale of this superior race of beings in this galactic universe where they go and they help struggling planets, but they can't let anybody know who they are because they don't want to be known. They don't want to be found. They have to do it anonymously. And it's really weird. But I really enjoyed like her relating to a normal human, and how they refer to them all as younglings. Anyone who's not as high up the bar as them are younglings. And so it was a really interesting view of the universe and like what the potential could be for that. I don't know. I found it really interesting. Like, in the future, could that be us? And what would that look like? Or is there already people out there in the universe that are far beyond us mentally and technology and all of that? I don't know. It was just a really interesting story about a girl coming to a planet to save the youngling race, or save the youngling planet rather, from another group of intergalactic planet people who were trying to take over the planet. And it was interesting because you can see like the planet they are helping, they're very medieval. It's a very medieval type place. They live in a feudal society, and it's just very much like what you would picture a medieval time period to look like. And the youngling race that comes in and is like taking over their planet, they have technology on par with maybe what we would have, maybe slightly higher. And so to see them look down on these younglings who are still medieval as not human, as they're not even people. They speak a language we don't understand, and they look strange, and look at how dirty they are, and they're not human. And I found the story to be really interesting and thought-provoking, and I enjoyed it. And this was written in like the 60s, I believe. Is it 60s or 70s? Yeah, this was written in 1970, so it didn't feel like 1970s. It felt fairly modern. So I thought that was interesting too. And I also want to say that this is a Newbery Honor book, which is awesome. So I recommend this if you want to read it. I think it's a really good story. I also read Grendel by John Gardner, and I'm still processing my thoughts on this book because on one hand, I really liked it. If you're familiar with Beowulf's story, then you'll know who Grendel is. Grendel is the monster that Beowulf defeats. In the story, he's been attacking Hrothgar's castle and men, and so Beowulf comes in to save the day. He's the hero. And this book takes that idea and flips it. What if Grendel wasn't actually a bad guy? What if Grendel is just misunderstood? What if he's a monster because he's different and everyone is afraid of him automatically? I mean, yes, he eats people, but as a predator, lions eat other animals. So it's similar to that idea. And so, I don't know, I found it really interesting, and you really had to think about, like, what's the other side of the story? I really like when you get another perspective of a story, because I think it's really important to be well-rounded when you're looking at things. And I know it's fiction, but I still found it really interesting to see, like, Grendel's side of the story, and maybe he wasn't what we thought he was. I don't know. I just found it really interesting. The writing is, I wouldn't say super difficult, but it's definitely, you need to slow down because I tried to like burn through this in 2 days because I'm like, oh, it's short. It's not even 200 pages, but I had to slow way down because it's challenging, but it's not like super hard. So I gave this 3.5 stars because I'm still thinking about it. I might up my rating after I've thought on it for a little while longer, but I did find it really interesting. I also have 2 books that I read with my kids this month. I was sick for most of the month, so I didn't read a lot out loud, but I did read Zoe and Sassafras, I can't say it, Zoe and Sassafras, Monsters and Mold. I read this with my 8-year-old, and she loves the series. We're already halfway, or a little more than halfway through the 3rd book, and she's already begging me to get the next one. I'm like, there isn't a next one, I'm sorry. So, Asia Citro, if you're watching, my daughter would very much like to have more in the series. I'm really hoping there will be more in the series. Right now she's writing her own because she's impatient. I don't know, she hasn't talked too much about it yet, but my daughter wants to write the next book in the series, and she's writing it about helping magical pigs. But these books are just super cute. They're about a girl named Zoe who is working on science experiments and stuff, and her mom is a scientist, and she finds out that she lives bordering a magical forest where there are magical creatures that she gets to help. And she uses the scientific method to figure out what's wrong with the creatures and help them. And so there's lots of science in it, but also some fantasy for some fun. Like this one's about a monster who has moldy fur and he doesn't know what to do and he really hates it. He wants to go to the monster ball, but he's embarrassed about his moldy fur, so she has to try to figure out how to get rid of the mold and keep it from growing back, and it's just a really cute series. And I got this too to read aloud. I ended up reading it to myself mostly, but I did keep shouting out cool facts to my teenagers because I thought this was fascinating. It's called ThisPhenomenal Life, The Amazing Ways We Are Connected with Our Universe by Misha Maynard Blaze, and I loved it. It's got beautiful, beautiful, stunning artwork. Like, it's just gorgeous. The artwork in this book is beautiful. And it's exactly what it says. And it's full of like really interesting ideas and facts. Like one of my favorite quotes is in here. It says, "You are the universe expressing itself as human for a little while." And that's from Eckhart Tolle. I love that. So this is just one of those cool, like almost a coffee table book that you want to like have it out and just like flip through it and talk about it. It's full of rabbit trails. This would send you on so many rabbit trails, just looking up all the interesting information. Highly recommend this. And those are all the books I read in the month of April. What did you read in April? I would love to hear about it. Let's share down below in the comments. And I will see you guys in my next video. Happy reading. Bye.